Hey guys, in today's video I will be ranking each map on this tier list. Okay, so first we have Ascent. Ascent is, in my opinion, the best map. It's really balanced, and that's the main thing that makes it good. Let's look at mid first, which is in my opinion really well designed. You can peek top cap from market, which is good for long range. But this is okay, because when you're peeking top cap, you're covered by every side, including tiles. If you're the one on top cap, you can position yourself to peek tree entrance or only market by positioning yourself differently. There's also tiles where you can peek tree and pizza. Let's talk about A site now. A site is big but not as open as Breeze, for example, which makes it good for both attackers and defenders. Attackers could go tree on A main and sometimes even mid. Defenders have heaven, can play off gen and green boxes, hell, and window. Also, the door could be a benefit or can damage you, depending on the situation you're in. Teams can play strategically on either side, which is great. Let's talk about B site. Usually most people would go B main garage, and a lot of times that's pretty bad because defenders can peek from CT, back wall, market, etc. But with smokes and utility, you can push through. Unlike split B site, when even with smokes and util, the site is still more open, so defenders can use better positioning and kill you easier. Okay, so after you clear market, cubby, CT, and back wall, all your team has to do is clear site and back site. All in all, Ascent is really balanced and is easily the best map on the list. Usually, the team with the better skill wins. Alright, next we have Bind. Bind is also a great map in my opinion. There's no midsection, but there are 4 clear lanes, which are showers, B long, A short, and B hookah. First, let's look at B site. B hookah isn't really fun because you have to check multiple corners and it's annoying. If you pre-aim the area when you're attacking, you would usually win the fight if you check the opposite corner first, the defender would kill you. What's also annoying is jumping down from hookah to site. Again, utility could fix this, but backside is still a big problem. Unless everyone entries at the same time, coordination is a big part of playing Bind. A is balanced as well. Pushing up elbow after smoking heavy and walling truck is the plan for most pushes. You also have access to showers with the triple box plant spot. For defenders, you don't want to give up elbow or showers. When the attackers have control of these locations, they basically have site all to themselves. Lastly, the no mid thing is okay because both sides still have 2 ways to push in, and there are good ways to enter. Finally, teleports give attackers an advantage, especially the B long teleport, to rotate quickly and to plant showers. The only reason I put Bind under Ascent is that there's no midsection, and hookah on B is really close angled. Next we have Breeze. Breeze is confusing because it has a lot of entrances. The main ones are on A and B main, but it's heavily attack-sided because it's easy to push through mid to A, from mid to B, from halls to A site, and from halls to spawn. As a defender, it's really hard to defend mid and site at the same time. Let's talk about B site first. B site is open to B main and B window. Now you could play back site, but you would be more exposed to mid and elbow. B, like A, is a really big and open site. Once they Viper wall or Omen smoke, taking site is easy for attackers. The big problem is A site, mainly because of halls and mid. Halls is mainly an aim battle. If you let them take control, they can push up to the door and even spawn. Mid is really easy to push up to because it's only exposed to B elbow. A is also really big, and once the attackers clear out close angles, the rest is just playing post plan. So in conclusion, Breeze is the worst map by far. Next, we have Fracture. Now Fracture is better than Breeze, but it's still pretty bad. I think it's mostly that it's so different from other maps that kinda makes it bad. Unlike the other maps, defenders spawn at mid, and the attackers have 4 lanes to push in from. Their main problem, however, is that these 4 lanes are all in opposite directions, so you can't just switch angles. Like if you were on Bind B long and then 2 seconds later you can just peek hookah. There has to be one person watching each side of each site. The one main advantage, however, is that defenders have an easy rotate if they do push. Sometimes this doesn't even work, because a lot of the time, mid is watched by all the attackers after they planted. It's balanced in a way that it's easy to rotate, but the big problem is that you have to watch a lot of angles in the beginning of the round. And because it's more balanced, I would just place it above Breeze, but it's still a C tier map in my opinion. Alright, next we have Haven, the only map with 3 sites. Haven is a pretty good map in my opinion. It's good for attackers because you can rotate from A to C in like 15 seconds. Also, defenders have to watch all 3 sites and garage. It's not all bad for defenders however, because the sites are pretty small. and sentinels can watch mostly anyone who tries to push. A site is great because they're short and long. You have to watch close angles and long angles in A. Defenders can also play strategically behind green boxes. Once attackers get site, however, there's a really small chance that retaking the site will work. They can play for both short and long, and they can watch CT and smoke heaven. And jumping from heaven is always a bad thing for the defenders. B site is pretty easy to defend because there's only one way of really getting in, and that's through mid. C site, however, is tricky because if the attackers take over garage, it's going to be hard to defend. At that point, the attackers can push spawn, backside B, or backside C. B and C site is pretty simple for attackers. Just plan for window or plan for long. And then after that, just peek whenever they defuse. All in all, Haven is a pretty fun map. If you get the plant down, you basically won. If you don't, it's hard to win. Next, we have Icebox. Now I know this is pretty controversial, but I'm gonna put Icebox in S tier. Icebox is really balanced in my opinion. It's rope, belt, defender belt, and nest. Attackers could push through site from pipes, or just push up. The entrance is really wide, while the site itself is pretty small. This makes it great for attackers to push up, but on site, there's a lot of corners to check. Let's look at mid. Mid has tube, which leads to kitchen. If you take over kitchen, you have control of the whole B site, and you can catch rotations in defender spawn. You can also push up mid, but defenders could stop that by peeking from boiler. There's also snowman, where defenders could watch a push from mid. This is a great mid area because it's balanced, but complicated due to its verticality. Usually, the player with the better game knowledge or the player with the better aim usually wins these duels, which makes it really fair. And that's one of the reasons I put it in S tier. B is really good as well, because defenders could peek off yellow and get a couple of kills. Attackers could take over yellow and use that to their advantage. On-site is great because you have multiple angles to clear, from boxes to heaven to mid. With strategy like pushing from mid or walling site, playing post plant is really easy because all you have to do is peek from yellow or peek from main. Finally, we have split. Split used to be easily the worst map in the game due to it being heavily defender sided. Riot has been trying to fix it up since its launch. They widened mid and B site. First, let's talk about B site. B site is still pretty defender sided because you would get crossfired from heaven, close box, backwood, and backside. Even with smokes, you will still need to check at least 2 more angles. A lot of the time, going mid works better. In mid, you can get peeked from only 2 angles, mail and vents. Even if you did take control of these areas, going down to ropes to A heaven is still hard because people still look after that. And B heaven works when you get rid of the Cypher or KJ util. If you do take over B heaven, B site is really easy to take. You just have to watch spawn while you're doing it. Going A from mid only really works when most defenders already rotated to B. Alright, let's talk about A. A is actually pretty good for attackers because you can take over heaven pretty easily, or clear out hell and push site. But post plant is still the hardest on split because B, for example, you can go garage, but it's still easy to push up and kill you while you're using your brimstone ult or your silver ult, for example. Or A, most of the time you have to play on the site anyways, because once you plant, the only 2 areas you can go are Hell or CT, and both of those areas, the defenders will push from anyways, so there's really not that high of a chance that you can really play post plant. Okay guys, so my final ranking from worst to best is Breeze, Fracture, Split, Haven, Bind, and Ascent. Let me know if you agree with this list. If not, make your list in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.